All right, let's go to our Southern Regional Medical phone lines. Billy, sorry if you were waiting there. But we appreciate you joining us here live on this Wednesday morning. Billy Embody, one of our favorites from On 3. Of course, after a weekend of heavy recruits in Tuscaloosa, always look to catch up with our friends over at On 3. You can follow Billy, of course, on social media at Billy Embody. Billy, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
The shakeout of this weekend, Billy, what's it do for recruiting? This game always has a huge emphasis on what happens in the early and late signing periods. What's the 2023 edition mean?
Yeah, I think this one is not necessarily one that rocks the boat as much. I think LSU played well and obviously took that lead early in the second half. And for the most part, recruits won't look at one game and say, "Oh man, wow, that is so bad. This is I'm not interested anymore," or I'm not going to go there anymore, and things like that. Jaden obviously got knocked out with a concussion and or whatever protocol he's in, and I think that's something where on the surface, recruits will probably look at that and say, "Wow, that's the difference in the game type of thing." You kind of don't hold certain things against a coaching staff when a Heisman Trophy quarterback gets knocked out like that. But I think for defensive recruits, there's opportunity to be had, right? And LSU is trying to flip some of A&M's top defensive commits, Gabe Relaford, Terry Bussey, guys like that, and they're still trying on guys across the country to see if they can get some late guys in on visits and what have you. But I don't necessarily think it's a game that really rocks the boat much for a lot of these guys overall. And a lot of younger players were in Tuscaloosa, some Louisiana guys like Lamar Brown at U High, 2025 five-star quarterback George McIntyre, who's an LSU target, was there. Caleb Cunningham, a five-star wideout from Mississippi. Jakeem Stewart was in Tuscaloosa. He's seen LSU a lot. Anthony Jones, a top linebacker in 2026, was there. So those guys, once again, kind of got exposed to LSU and got to look at them up close and personal. But overall, I don't think it does too much, especially when you're not the team hosting prospects.
Yeah. Here to Baton Rouge, you mentioned Lamar Brown, the offensive lineman at University High. He's a guy in the recruiting cycle that is flying up the charts. I think moving to a five-star status pretty quickly here. At the end of the month, his teammate Keelan Moses will make his decision. Moses has been trending and feeling like an LSU commit for a while. He did have some interesting social media platform. He put some stuff out on social media over the weekend. Read into anything going on with Moses, and what do you expect at the end of the month for the University High star?
Yeah, I don't read into that stuff too much. I mean, people remember Colin Simmons saying "shock the world" and things like that, and then he commits Texas. I mean, it's just one of those things that some guys, might, try to drum things up. And this is their moment, and especially if you are going to lock it in and stay, committed, like I would expect Keelan Moses to, wherever he goes, which I think is going to be LSU. And the reason is, I mean, he's just one of those guys that wants to lead in a class. He is taking, off the top of my head, kind of one of the top couple guys in that 2025 class, especially from Louisiana, in terms of guys that I just really enjoy talking with. I mean, he's just a really mature young man who knows what the process is about. Obviously, his brother Dylan went through it, and just has a really, really good head on his shoulder. So I expect it to be LSU on November 30th when he announces, and it'll be cool. I believe he's doing it at his school's basketball game.
All right, Billy, take me to the areas of need here for LSU. Defensive line, you mentioned Gabe Relaford. What's happening on the junior college front there, or any guys that may be flying onto the radar here for the Tigers?
Yeah, I'll note quickly that the transfer portal window opens Monday, December 4th, and you can imagine LSU will try to be very active in that spot, especially on the defensive line. I mean, you've got to continue to try to address it. You have to bring in more defensive help in the secondary. But when it comes to looking at the junior college guys, Jaden Hamlin is a prospect that they offered just last month, and he's expected to come back for an official visit later this year. He goes to Southwest Mississippi Junior College. He's got some big offers. He's got, I believe, Georgia's offered. I could be wrong, but yeah, Georgia's offered. Miami's offered. A couple other big schools have offered, but then LSU's jumped in the mix as well, and he's just a huge body in the middle. And then Sean Washington, who is a former New Orleans area star, who was a one-time LSU commit. They parted ways. That was back when Coach O was in town, and he ends up signing with Georgia. It doesn't work out there. He lands in junior college as well, and now he's looking for a new home, and LSU is right in the mix. Sean was at the LSU-Alabama game, I believe, as well. He's somebody that I would expect they bring in for an official visit at this point, and those are two really big body guys on the defensive line from the junior college ranks that you can keep an eye on.
How about in the defensive backfield? Obviously another area that LSU is targeting this recruiting cycle. Any names, any new names? Obviously we saw the Causey commitment the last time we talked.
Yeah, I think we're watching to see what Kai Bates does. He's somebody that I would kind of be surprised if he signed with LSU at this point, but the staff has done a really nice job of evaluating corners throughout the process and looking elsewhere for help, knowing that they have to load up that cornerback room. They have Juwan Johnson. They have Wallace Foster. They're recruiting Terry Bussey, who could play nickel, who could play free safety. But I think there are corners to be had maybe late in the cycle. We'll see kind of who those names are. Haven't seen any new offers go out just yet. But if Kai Bates does indeed go elsewhere, I think we'll see them move on a high school corner. And if not, the portal is a spot where we saw it in 2022 really help LSU in a big way. And in 2023, it hasn't worked out as much, obviously. But they'll look to kind of rekindle some of that magic with the corners coming from the portal this cycle. And I mean, honestly, more often than not, it'll work out. They'll hope to hit on a guy like a Zy Alexander type and a Jerick Bernard Converse and Mekhi Garner. I like what they've done really more often than not, recruiting corners out of the portal. So I know the big name is Denver Harrison. It hasn't worked out, and Deuce Chestnut, but they've done better more often than not when it comes to those corners.
Billy, you were able to catch up with Bryce Underwood, the five-star quarterback who made a trip down to LSU a couple of weeks ago for the Auburn game. What were you able to pick up from the visit?
Yeah, just that he really enjoyed himself. It was a great time for him and his family to once again get down to Baton Rouge and experience Tiger Stadium. The place was rocking. That stood out in a big way for him. He's kind of in an interesting spot right now because he confirmed that he's planning on making his commitment on January 6th to honor his late great-grandmother. And I think that for him, in Michigan, you have the playoffs that end Thanksgiving weekend. The state championship is that weekend. Probably easier to get around before the calendar turns to December, all the way up there. But so he's going through playoffs right now. So he won't get the chance to, in all likelihood, come back for an LSU game or make a trip to Michigan for the Ohio State game. Those are things he won't be able to do, most likely. And so then that means, does he go and head over to these schools in December and get one last look? Does he pop in to one of his top 7 schools? He added Alabama, Florida State, Oregon, LSU, Michigan, of course, and then a couple others to that final 7 that he released this week. Is there going to be a school that pops in there and changes things? Colorado and Penn State were the other 2. They both hosted him this year, but will he go to an Oregon? Will he check out a Florida State? Those are schools with quarterback commits in 2025, but I think both are open to taking another. Obviously, if it would be a Bryce Underwood, and will that shake things up? I don't know, but if he were committing today, I would put my money on LSU.
A lot of people have been on Drelon Miller watch. Miller made a trip to Boulder over the last couple of weekends, and someone who's got a good relationship with LSU and the staff. Where does he sit right now after decommitting from Texas A&M a few weeks ago?
Yeah, I think Drelon Miller is one where at the Bengal Tiger, where you find our stuff, we kind of said if Drelon Miller committed shortly after he decommitted from Texas A&M, it would be to LSU, and that would be the optimal situation. Now that he has stretched it out, it's very unclear what's going to happen, I think. You hope that he makes it back to LSU sooner rather than later for another visit. At the same time, I think this is, once again, shaping up to be an LSU-Texas A&M battle. And the longer it drags out, we'll see. By that point, if he takes it all the way to the early signing period, LSU might have a portal commitment from a receiver. They could address it that way. Or, maybe they can get him on board. There's also Courtney Crutchfield, who decommitted from Arkansas, who there's a lot of smoke around Missouri, but LSU is still working to maybe bring him in as an option. He's a versatile prospect, could play wide receiver or defensive back. But, Drelon Miller is just somebody that at this point LSU's kind of been waiting on. And he didn't pull the Weston Davis where he flipped right away. Instead, he's taking more visits, and so it's just going to be an interesting one to watch. They're still recruiting him; they're still very, very much in the mix. But as he drags it out, we'll just kind of have to see on that one.
Yep. Billy Embody joining us here. Jordy Culotta show, as always, talking some recruiting and talking the obviously this part of the schedule, Billy. When you're talking about the early signing period, how much shakeup do you start to see with classes, commitments, signings? When you're talking about this part of the schedule?
Yeah, I think we're good for probably a couple guys to not end up at wherever they're committed, and that goes for across the country. We saw Andre Evans flip to Georgia. We saw Weston Davis flip to LSU. We've seen the battle continue to rage on for Gabe Relaford, Terry Bussey, other guys that are committed to A&M like Drelon Miller or were committed to A&M. Those things are all ongoing and happening, and we're watching Kai Bates at this point to see if he maybe goes elsewhere. I think for the most part, though, LSU's class is pretty set. We'll see. There's always kind of that surprise or somebody that strings it along all the way to the final hour for many schools across the country that flips elsewhere. So it is one of those interesting times of year where kind of expect the unexpected at this point.
Billy, before we get you out of here, give me some thoughts on this men's basketball team. And I mean, they can score.
Yeah, I mean, the opening win, I like to see that from Will Baker. I've known Will for a long, long time, and I think that was a nice moment for him to just start off his career the right way. That was big for me watching that. I think for LSU, they're going to have tougher tasks ahead than Mississippi Valley State, of course. But for Will Baker, I think that's a big, big positive. Just to be that efficient, 10 of 11. It wasn't like he was 10 of 25 or something. Just volume scoring and things like that. He did a little bit of everything, and that was the big thing that stuck out to me. I like what Jordan Wright brought to the table. You could tell that he's a veteran. I wish Jalen Cook was out there for LSU. I think he'd be a massive difference maker for this team running the show. But it was a nice first impression, no doubt. A pretty easy win for them to open things up.
Billy Embody, a part of Bengal Tiger and the On 3 cast that you can find over there, doing great work, podcasting as well, that you can find wherever you pick up your podcast at. And they are here with us every single week. You can follow him on social media at Billy Embody. Thank you, Bill. Have a good day, good weekend. We'll talk next week.
Appreciate you guys having me.
Thanks for tuning in to our premium LSU content right here on YouTube. If you want more of it, subscribe below.